I'm going to be showing you how to do the front ball joints and front control arm bushings on this 2003 Subaru WRX. So with your vehicle safely suspended in the air and the front wheels taken off, I already started working on these tie rods, so ignore this work. Doesn't have to do with this, but what we're going to be doing is separating the lower ball joint using a pickle fork, taking off this sway bar link right here, and then taking out the bolt for this front bushing on the control arm, and then there's two bolts holding on the rear bushing, and the thing will slide out. So I'll show you the process on this. It'll be in your best interest to have these items. Definitely some PB blaster for the rusty bolts, wire brush to get rid of any dirt, selection of pickle forks, and some good hammers, as well as a flashlight. Unfortunately, so I'm doing my other side currently, right before I filmed this, and I found out that pressing these bushings out is a pretty annoying thing to do. Luckily, the rear one separates from this control arm, so that can be handled separately, but getting a hydraulic press is just about necessary. I tried the hand crank tools on these, and they do not work, so you're gonna want to PB blast that up in here as much as possible inside and on the bolt, and then some on this, definitely on the other side more than that side. And those two down there should come out pretty easy. So grab yourself a 5mm Allen key and a 14mm box end wrench, and you'll be able to break this loose. All right, once you take out that cotter pin, and I used an impact to get that castle nut off, get yourself your pickle fork and wedge it in between, and just give it some really serious whacks, and then I'll get it off of there. And then you'll take a 17mm, really crank on that bolt. That thing's tough. Once that's separated, grab a 14. I'm also doing an impact. Zip that out. And that's the pinch bolt and retainer bolt for that ball joint. This thing, since mine's so rusted, this is gonna be a nightmare to get out. But I suggest grab yourself a decent set of chisels, one that start pretty thin and then end up getting fairly thick. You're gonna aim for the lip that's right above the ball joint, right there. Right between the knuckle and the ball joint, right where that edge is. And hammer in there, just like this. And just keep whacking at it until it starts to loosen up and separate, and then you switch to the bigger one, and eventually it'll start working itself out. All right, underneath the car, we're aiming for this, and in order to get that, you're gonna have to take off this plastic covering right here. So there's one, two, I think it's just two, yeah. Two pop retainers. You just wanna use your little, use a flathead or whatever, get in there. But these are old and nasty. And then up in there, we got 19 here and a 19 in there. I'm gonna zip those out real quick. Maybe not, let's see. Cool. Now let's take off this. All right, it's important to mark a line so you got orientation and the proper side. When you take these apart, you don't get it mixed up because they are one directional. And we're gonna pop this off and get the bushings out. These are the hard part. So pressing these out sucks. I had to make my own press bits in the lathe. I would recommend, if you don't have a press or access to it, just buy a new control arm because they come with the bushings. Otherwise, if you got the press or have access to it, take it there, have them deal with it. So I'm gonna get these pressed out. All right, we're gonna clean that surface up and put in the new bushings. If you're using the factory bushings, just press them in the same way you press the old ones out. But what I'm using is these Prothane bushings. One weird thing to me is that inner diameter is vastly larger than the outer diameter of that spindle. So it looks like that, but I called the company and they said that's how it's supposed to be. Once you tighten it down, apparently it doesn't have an issue. Not a big fan of it, but that's what I'm working with here. So I'm gonna grease these things up real good, push them into the housing, and torque it all together. And then I'm gonna get, actually I'm gonna press that out first, so let's get that out. All right, once you get everything cleaned up and pressed out, we're gonna go ahead and grease up all these bushings and put them together. They should just press in. You don't really need a hydraulic press for this. It's just kind of like a hand pressing it on the ground kind of thing. So I'm gonna throw these together and then we're gonna work on the ball joint. All right, for the ball joint, simply hit it out with a wedge of some sort. This one side was actually pretty easy. The other side was kind of rushed in there, but once it's out, clean it out, a little bit of light grit sandpaper, and then get your new one. I got the Moog kit, comes with a new bolt, pinch bolt, lock washer, castle nut, and cotter pin. And test fit it if it goes in. If it doesn't, you gotta clean it out some more. So, looks like I gotta clean mine out a little bit more. If you're having trouble getting the new one in, put the castle nut flush with the threads and give it some really light hits with the side of a hammer. It'll slowly work itself in. Main goal is not to damage the joint. But with this in, I can throw the control arm in, and I'm doing new sway bar links as well. So we're gonna throw the pinch bolt right here, torque it down. It's smart to clean these surfaces where the bushings are going. Have the bushings greased up pretty good. To get this control arm back in, I did have to tap a little bit on this with a hammer, and then once it's in there, you can line it up by putting a screwdriver in and prying it up a little bit. And then you bolt it back in, torque it down. Same with the bolts on this side for those, and then we can work with doing the ball joint. On this ball joint, just press down on that control arm, get it lined up with your thumb, and guide it in. And then we'll use the castle nut to tighten it and torque it. All right, got those rear two bolts holding that bushing on, torqued down to 184 foot-pounds, and the front bolt right here on that bushing, that one's torqued down to 74 foot-pounds. This pinch bolt right here, that is torqued down to 37 foot-pounds. And then I'm gonna put the ball joint in to socket, torque that castle nut down to 30 foot-pounds, and then you have a leeway of 60 degrees to get that hole lined up to get the cotter pin in. Same goes for this tie rod, ball joint, 30 foot-pounds. And then sway bar end link, these are 33 foot-pounds right here. And that should be it. Since you'll be doing an alignment, do yourself a favor while it's accessible and clean off this lock nut and threads behind it. It'll make it a lot easier for your alignment. Oh, by the way, might as well show you what I did. Threw the bushings in there. You can't really see the one up in there, but it's in there. And then ball joint at the bottom. Hope this video helped you. I'm gonna be doing an entire series on repairing this car from like basically the ground up and also modifying it, making it a lot cooler. So if you're interested in that, be sure to follow and subscribe us. Also, it helps us a lot with our channel. It lets us continue to do projects like this with your support. So thank you for that. Be sure to check out the other videos that I'm doing on this. Thanks.